Hi, my name is Gytis, and I'm working as a PhD scholar and a lecturer at Vytautas University. The field of my research is internet cultures, and that became extremely relevant once the global lockdown began in 2020. It's easy to observe that a huge amount of organizations and institutions were forced to adapt to this digital situation. Organizations which had never developed any kind of online experiences for their customers now are in a need to create something digital. And that is bringing a huge amount of issues, which could be described in a very simplified manner by calling them problems of immigration to the internet. Today, I'm going to use this very simplified binary opposition between natives and immigrants for the sake of our work, for the sake of simplicity. Although I'm aware with the fact that the colonial connotations here might be problematic, but for the sake of simplicity today, please bear with me. I'm obviously aware with the fact that you cannot boil down anything to binary oppositions, but it's going to be easy for us to understand the main problems by taking this allegory and exploring it. So now, huge amount of people who had never been involved in online cultures are forced to immigrate into them, to be part of them. And usually this kind of opposition between natives and immigrants is being seen as a matter of age, although that's a big misconception. Internet is a territory of knowledge and skill. And the division comes not in a matter of age or even economic background or access, because there's a huge amount of evidence that in Europe or America, USA, United States, the internet access penetration is really big. Most of the people have access to internet. So it's not a matter of access. It's not a matter of economic situation, because you can use internet for free in most of the cases. You just need a phone for this. In the most simple terms. The division comes in terms of cultural inclusivity, of being part of a wider cultural, symbolic territory, which is filled with rhetorics, with various skills which have to be developed, with confidences which people have to develop, and various, basically knowledges. So these two groups, natives and immigrants, they produce a really different culture online. Culture online, as you can observe it and see big difference. Natives are tech savvy. They are very interested in communities, and the culture which they produce reflects that. It's largely interactive. Usually it destabilizes conventional hierarchical structures, in the sense that anybody is observed as being just as important as some head of organization or anything. Natives are willing to share their skills, to teach each other, and they are not that concerned with authorship. The myth of the author is being dispersed and demolished here. And one really good example of this is Firefest in Minecraft. It's a huge music festival happening online in Minecraft. It features an extremely elaborate spatial setting filled with artistic installations, various aesthetic objects, various spaces to interact in a conversational way with each other, and obviously a music stage. Well, it's here. You can see a musician here, like in this case, it's a DJ, and yeah, like people are just having fun in this kind of setting. It brought around 4,000 or 5,000 attendees, which could be like, yeah, called as a nice turnover. I mean, here you can observe more of these really elaborate spatial structures, which were made specifically for this festival. It's crazy amount of work, it's crazy amount of knowledge required, and it's made as a community effort, bringing creativity from different places of world. Obviously, most of the visitors and most of the contributors to this festival are Western, but well, it's rather inclusive anyway. And like you could imagine, like how like various racial, ethnic, or even physical backgrounds, features of people are completely irrelevant in this kind of situation. Another interesting example is Virtual Utopia, its third iteration of another online music festival. This has a little bit different kind of interactivity. Instead of having an elaborate 3D interactive environment, here we have a 360 virtual reality YouTube live stream, which is a little bit lagging here. Well, it requires a rather powerful computer to run, and yeah, basically we can scroll to some examples. It mostly is concerned with vaporwave aesthetics. The music here is vaporwave, and it like features these kind of like retro vibes, which can be understood and related only if you are a part of this wider culture. Because, for example, in this case, the background is from Unreal Tournament video game, and it makes sense only if you like it adds like additional layer of sense when you have like this cultural knowledge. Here you can see organizers themselves speaking directly to the spectators. Here is the chat, and it's like very interactive. The organizers are always looking over the chat and trying to react to it. So what we have in Immigrant case is something very different. Immigrants, if we like go on with this colonial allegory, we can see that people who are native to some town or country, they are not that aware with the cultural features of their surroundings, while the immigrant always comes and with the critical eye. That's a very big opportunity for progress, for developments, for creating something inclusive for everybody. But when the immigrant is not that adept at the culture which he visits, which he immigrates to, then we get awkward situations. Immigrant is not able to speak the language, he is unable to go to the market and buy some tomatoes or whatever. In online situation, we could say that there is a similar problem happening in a sense that the immigrant is unable to speak the language of the internet. And I was extremely interested to see what kind of online cultural experiences are going to be developed once the lockdown began in March. And well, the results were not that encouraging, actually. Not that encouraging to interact with them. Most of the cases, we saw something like this. Lovely lady. I have nothing against her. I have nothing against her art or anything, but I am very concerned with the fact that she has this section in the website. It's exhibits. And once you click on the exhibits, you see this thing. You can scroll through her artworks, like artwork scans. It's not an exhibit, it's a slideshow. Once again, Tate Modern, a huge institution, has no immunity to these kind of linguistic misuses. Also, it's also exhibition, titled as an exhibition. I'm not questioning the importance of the information which is conveyed here, but when you call the exhibition this kind of screen art in this room, what kind of room is this? It's just like a folder with pictures. Do you call Google image search a room? Once again, some linguistic misuse, studio visit with Fred Tomaselli. And what you see here is Zoom video chat, video call with slides being shown as a screen share, using a screen share function. And it's not a studio visit, it's like just a PowerPoint slideshow. Once again, digital installation of artworks. To view the exhibition, click here. And when you click here, you see a rather boring kind of folder filled with pictures. When you click on them, you see them full screen, nothing else. It's not exhibition, it's not installation, it's just slideshow. The point which I'm trying to address here is that immigrants are making culture without taking a deep look into the possibilities which internet provides. The exhibitions which we see here are just replicating, basically scrolling through your folders in your computer, looking through the images. Like, it's not exhibition, it's not something which excites people online, it's not something which uses what internet provides, this like vast amount of possibilities which could be employed here to actually engage people. But what we see here is very static and rather boring, and I could say that there are a couple problems here, at least three of them. One is that space is being approached as in a very laconic and generic way. I mean that when you open these kind of exhibitions, Tate Modern or like any other case which I showed, is just replicating generic news website or some kind of like Facebook design or Google image search or whatever. It's nothing unique. It doesn't it doesn't take into account the fact that the spatiality of the internet, although it's flat and two-dimensional, actually has a huge curatorial statement and huge potential to emphasize the works in the right way. Just as curating exhibition in a physical space, you arrange pictures in a certain way, you select colors for the walls, you select lighting, you are thinking about the narrative which visitor is going to experience going around it. You should think about online space in the same way. Internet is has some like certain spatiality, and you have take it into account. Another problem is that the user is perceived here as a passive consumer. When we are going to a physical exhibition, when we are going especially to exhibition openings or some events, we are always getting a social experience, which is lacking in these examples which I showed. They are seeing the consumer as a passive spectator which just wants to click through slideshows and nothing else, but it's not engaging the visitor. And the third problem which I want to address here is the attitude towards internet exhibitions. The problem which I observed being an expert in different cultural projects was that institutions, when the lockdown began, they saw internet as a way to temporarily engage their visitors. Not to make something really long-lasting, they didn't realize how big of an opportunity internet is, how actually permanent your exhibition can be there, what a huge amount of visitors could visit it, and obviously what kind of possibilities does internet have. They didn't even want us to go into this because they thought that, okay, since we have the situation, maybe like the lockdown is going to last a month or two, but yeah, like our primary goal is making physical exhibitions, so we're just going to like hold our funding like in place and just make like whatever, just make a slideshow online, it's going to be fine. So the main problem was that basically institutions didn't take internet seriously. You have to realize that online spaces are just as real as physical ones. When you're going to Facebook, could you say that it's not real? Like, the emotions which you're experiencing are real. The people which you are seeing there, like, are real. Hope so. The comments and the texts which you read there, like, are real. And when you go to see some kind of exhibition, it's real. It's not virtual. Like, the dichotomy should be digital versus physical, not virtual versus physical. Both physical and digital or like online exhibitions are real. So you have to approach it as something like serious, fully capable of bringing huge amount of exposure to institution, bringing huge amount of visitors, turnovers, and like etc. And one good example of really good kind of culture produced online is We Link exhibition by Kronos Art Center. I'm not going to scroll through it, it's just an example for you to visit because it's like extremely interactive, has around 8 artworks, big curatorial statement, and it's made during the quarantine. It's a very good example which takes space in a very creative way, which sees the user as an active consumer which wants to interact and go through the internet and go through the corridors of the exhibition completely by himself and experience it in a unique way every time when he goes there. And obviously it's an example which sees the internet like as a serious thing, not something temporal, but as like internet as a reality. So, as we see here, the main problem, the main division between natives and immigrants is not connected to age. It's connected to knowledge. So, and ability to participate. like the main, when you go deep into sociological analysis, you could say that natives are the ones who are participating in internet territory very easily. It's very simple for them to create something there and to interact with the artworks, while the immigrants are not that confident with creating something. They're not that creative and they don't know the possibilities. So now we can go to see some gaps which are distancing natives and immigrants and how these gaps could be bridged. Here I'm going to address like the main gaps for the culture creators, which are less discussed in public spheres. So the first of them is technical knowledge. Even if you are not concerned with making anything online by yourself, if you aim to actually hire somebody for this, you have to know what kind of possibilities this online situation provides for you. And without any technical knowledge, it's very difficult to understand what kind of possibilities are there, and it's also extremely difficult to communicate your wishes to the professionals. Some of the tools which I encourage you to experiment with is WordPress for web page building, Squarespace, a very easy tool for web page building, ReadyMag, extremely design-oriented tool which allows to create websites which look as art objects themselves. Hot Glue is a very unique kind of tool to create websites, which has a little bit similar user interface to Microsoft Paint, so it's like very easy, and it creates also like quite quirky, a little bit cringy kind of websites, but they can be like also a curatorial statement. HTML is necessary if you want to really go deep into web page building, but it's not needed if you're not going to work by yourself on it, if you're going to hire somebody. Adobe Pack is very useful if you don't want to hire a designer for every kind of little change in the design, like, I don't know, to change the date or like to change some kind of name on a banner. Like, if you know how to use Photoshop, at least in the basic level, you can do it yourself, and the designer can work on important things. OBS is a tool for live streaming. It's rather easy to use, and it allows to create live online events for free for everybody. In combination with Facebook Live, you can reach like huge audiences without investing like any money into it. Just your time. So I encourage you to experiment with these tools. It's not necessary for you to actually develop anything. Like, you just experiment with them to see what kind of possibilities are there, and then enroll courses if you're really willing to create something yourself. And I cannot stress this enough, develop partnerships with technical professionals, because it's very problematic when the cultural institution has no technical staff in their teams. And it's also very problematic when the cultural institution is unable to communicate their wishes to technical staff, which they're hiring, for example, programmers, effectively. And it's also very problematic when the programmers themselves are unable to communicate their feedback and their thoughts back to the cultural institution distribution effectively. It's rather oftenly observed that these two groups are miscommunicating. So long-lasting partnerships might be a panacea for really static, sluggish, non-interactive, boring kind of online exhibitions. By developing partnerships, you can unleash huge potentials. Another gap is internet vernacular. You have to speak the language of internet in order to speak to the users of it, to the native users. Internet is speaking in post-irony. That's the dominating aesthetic. Post-irony is rather difficult to understand from a first glance. It's on the one hand, it's ironic and funny. On the other hand, it's very serious. Has often very deep critical messages. It's a very good way to communicate your position from a distance of humor, and and if you want to really engage the youngsters of the internet, you have to speak this language. So what you can do, you can spend some time researching, you can go to some Facebook groups or meme pages, scroll through them, and it's going to be very fun and very useful. You can also develop your own memes if they're relevant to your context. In some cases, they are relevant, and you can actually convey your message with meme and engage a whole different kind of user base. And on the other hand, it's also sometimes said that digitally literate person should be able to develop memes easily. So if you are unable to develop any kind of meme, maybe you should work on it. And finally, it's very important to develop taste, to know what kind of trends are relevant, what kind of aesthetics and problematics are being tackled with in wider internet art communities. Some web pages which are important. One of them is rhizome.org, and it's one of the oldest institutions concerned with internet art. It's filled with very interesting blog posts, and they're making very important projects for online art. Another interesting source of art online is Feldzine. It's internet magazine, but for internet art. Very simply designed, is featuring very fresh young artists. Is This It is extremely relevant online art exhibition space, which has huge archive. I really encourage you to go to this website, Is This It, and just open online exhibitions. You will see really big list of links. Go there, and it's going to inspire you very greatly. And finally, Social Distancing Festival. It's a project which was made when the lockdown began, and it works like kind of like a news aggregator, you could say. Like it just brings different kind of projects, different kind of institutions in one place, and you can see a calendar of live streams of various visual art, dance, music, or whatever, and you can just like open this webpage and then go see what's happening in the world. So also a good place to get inspired and see what's relevant. So developing your taste, seeing is going to, it's easy to do it by just simply following the main websites, which I just showed, and developing your library. It's the internet art is also like is unique in the sense that you can basically have a whole artwork unchanged in your computer. Rhizome has web saver software which allows to do that, to archive whole web pages, or if you don't want to do it, you can just collect like collections of links, then have them and open them if you are creating your own exhibition. It's like very different from visiting physical exhibitions. You can bring back exhibition catalog, but it's not the same as like visiting the exhibition. While with internet art, you can always experience the artwork just as it was developed, like just as it is. Not a mediation of it, not some kind of like substitution like a catalog, but like the artwork itself. Or the exhibition itself. So yeah, these three things are very important, and they will allow you to become digitally literate, at least in some kind of sense. Because when we are speaking about immigration to the internet, we are speaking about becoming digitally literate, but it's impossible to actually say that this person is literate and this not, because these binary oppositions don't work. We have a plurality of capacities which have to be developed progressively according to needs and individual interest. Context, sensitivity is very important here, because a digitally literate person in some kind of meme community or Minecraft spaces is not going to be digitally literate in Wikipedia space, for example. So basically, like, context is very important, and you can be in some sense literate and not depending on it. And it's actually an encouraging message, because it encourages you to develop your capacities without actually needing to focus on all areas of skills. You can just develop those skills which are needed for you, and you can claim that you're digitally literate, at least in this kind of setting. Doug Belshaw is the main researcher in this context, and he developed this kind of like framework of literacies. He has cultural literacies, creative literacies, constructive, communicative, confident, cognitive, critical, and civic. 8 kind of elements of becoming literate, and well, you can get deeper into it by opening his webpage, literacy.es. You can download his ebook and basically like get really deep into this discourse. So we covered a lot of ground here. Short time, a lot of ground, and I hope you were encouraged to create something meaningful online. Yeah, like perhaps the main takeaway is that internet is real. Take it seriously and be experimental, like be creative, and don't be afraid to learn something new here. Internet provides huge amount of possibilities, not only for really unique aesthetics, not really unique ways to engage the visitor, but also to create long-lasting exposition for your institution, long-lasting visitor base. So I hope it was interesting, and I hope you will create something cool. That was Gytis, and maybe we will meet somewhere again in these corridors of binary codes. Thank you for watching.